Trolling law enforcement. What's your story? Story 1. So I'll give my example here. I was reminded after reading the post about someone warning a kid about buying from an undercover cop. Back when I was in school, the university newspaper ran a story about undercover cops using a younger, cute girl to camp outside the liquor store just off campus and ask people to buy her beer. She'd give people the money and then ask them if they wanted to come back to her vehicle and share one as a way to say thanks. Get back to where her car is supposed to be, and the van door opens up, cop is inside, and you get a ticket for underage buying. Later that evening, my friend and I were going to the same liquor store to get some beer when we were approached by a cute girl who asked us if we could buy her a six-pack of beer since she was underage. Being a dumb I said sure, took her money and went inside. About 10 seconds later, I remembered the piece about the undercover cops and realized that we were about to get arrested. At that point, we decided the best thing we could do was buy a six-pack of super expensive root beer, blowing $9 off the $20 she gave us. And then we put it in a paper bag. We walked out and she asked us, "Did you get it?" To which we said, "Yeah, of course." She invited us back to her car to have one each as a thank you. Surely enough, we head to the back and there's a black van. The doors open up and the cop's just sitting there with his headphones on and they tell us, "You're in a world of trouble now." I put on my best troll face and said, "Really? I really thought you guys could use some root beer sitting out here in that cramped van all night." There was an awkward pause and then they opened the bag, root beer, nothing else. And then they told us to get the f*** out of there and we were interfering with the police investigation. And if we didn't leave, we'd get arrested. We walked across the street to our apartment building and went into the various laundry rooms and yelled out the window every time she approached someone that it was a sting. They left after 20 minutes of that. Story 2. I grew up in a small town, really small. The only way to have any form of entertainment was to drive 30 minutes into the next city and go to the movies, bowling, etc. It just so happened on the highway halfway between the two cities there was a small town known for being a speed trap. The highway was out of the jurisdiction of local police, so what the marshal would do was hide between two overpasses and catch speeders, and force them to pull over onto the frontage road which was in jurisdiction. Then he would claim an exaggerated speed. When people asked to see his radar, which is perfectly legal, he claimed that he didn't have to because it was illegal. Any claim reported to his superiors seemed to go ignored, until he ran into me. Over time, my friends and I timed his patrols and realized that he patrolled toward the end of the month. One night he had stopped a friend for excessive speeding. The officer claimed 92 in a 60 zone, which was bullshit. And then we knew something had to be done. The officer had taken his plate number and claimed to have seen it speeding many different times, and we knew that he would look out for it. So I decided to take my phone and ring it up to record the speedometer and get pulled over by the officer. It took a few tries, but I managed to get pulled over by the same officer for doing 70 and 60, that being a first-time offense, and after giving him my license, he went to claim that I was doing at least 85 and giving me the whole bit about how he cannot show me the radar, as well as giving me a ticket and claiming it was a repeat offense and how I should be put in jail. All this was caught on my phone without him noticing. So a few days later, I show up at the courthouse to pay the ticket, and I managed to talk to the mayor of the town and show him the video of all this. Thanks to me, the officer got fired, and I didn't have to pay a $400 ticket from a douchebag. Story 3. I am from Arizona, where the police like to bust into people's homes for no reason, use unnecessary force when dealing with anyone, and basically just run around like they own the f***ing place because it's a horrific police state. But I moved to Portland and I was at a house party once. The house party was huge, like 300-ish people, all smoking blunts and all drinking more than necessary. The party got too big to be indoors, so it kind of just spilled out into the street. So there were a ton of loud, wasted people running around and acting like 4-year-olds, and the police showed up. Everyone freezes, dead silent, while the 4 cops walk around looking bemused. One of the cops finds the guy who threw the party, and we all watch in horror as the cop approaches this stoned as f***ing wasted man. He approaches him and says, "Hey, we were just driving by and wanted to stop by to see if you guys wanted some free stuff." Cue instant WTF. The cops took out these huge boxes of the trunks filled with little things like pencils, bike lights, and plastic little badges. Kid stuff. And they handed it all out and we all got free stuff. And while they were discussing how to get home safely, be it by foot or by car, it all went better than they expected, and after they left, we all played with the pencils and little erasers for a good hour, having fun mini lightsaber battles. Added bonus, we all got some education on how to get home safely and some other random facts about what police do and how they operate, information that I find useful once in a while. I love the cops in Portland. Story 4. I was once out with my longboard and backpack at 3 a.m. after some drinking. I had a tiny knit bear in my shirt pocket because chicks will totally talk to you if you carry around a tiny bear. At some point, the bear must have fallen out of my shirt, so I was retracing my path when a cop car pulled up next to me and 2 other guys started questioning me. The younger and more aggressive one wanted to look in my bag, and I told him that he couldn't, which really irked him. Fun fact, the only thing in my bag was a pipe. He took my ID and went on the radio while the other cops stayed and talked to me. He was older and much nicer, so I told him about my missing bear and how chicks totally love that bear. As soon as I finished the story, the aggressive cop jumped out of his car and rushed right up to me until he was probably 6 inches away and barked, "What did you just say? I didn't hear that story. Say that story again!" As if I was going to suddenly screw up my story with all this pressure. In the end, they kept me for around half an hour while they ran my ID again and again, asked me for any other ID I had, as if my driver's license wasn't enough, and continued to hassle me to open my bag, promising me that they would let me go if they looked inside. They wouldn't have. When they finally let me go, the aggressive cop threatened, "If we see you here again tonight, you will be arrested." I let out a big laugh, and I didn't really feel like wasting any more of my time with smart-ass comments, and I went on my way. Never did find that bear. Story 5. When my buddy and I were 16 and stupid as hell, we did a lot of nonsense playing on cops, but this was by far our best. We'd spent a lot of time lurking around grocery/toy stores at 3 a.m. Toy stores earlier, obviously, until one of us got an idea looking at an item in a way that it was not intended to be used in the way we wanted to use it. Normal hilarity ensued. Vaseline on padlocks, bubbles and fountains, that kind of stuff. This night was different. We're sitting in the sandwich aisle of our large local store, and my buddy's eyes light up. He looked over at me and goes, "Get that peanut butter, smooth kind." This having been about the 4th year of us doing this, I wasn't 100% sure where he was going with it, but I knew not to question. So I bought 2 of those huge, smooth peanut butter things. We walked outside, crossed the street, and he tells me to rip the safety seal off the peanut butter and get some on my fingers and mess up the smooth top. This was when it clicked. We then proceeded to walk absolutely as suspiciously as possible through this little town square. Surely enough, halfway through, we get spotlighted. Cops pull up and tell us to stop, and we both instinctively put the peanut butter behind our backs, obviously holding something. Cop gets out and the conversation with my friend goes like this. "What do you got there, son?" "Nothing." "What's behind your back?" "Nothing." I giggle. "Show me your hands." My buddy very slowly puts the peanut butter behind his shoes and socks and shows the cop his hands. "Give me that, it's mine." So the cop reaches behind my friend's feet and grabs this jar of peanut butter. He spins the top of it and sees that it's not in pristine shape, demands to know what's in it. My buddy, peanuts, salts, maltodextrin, red 3. "What did you hide in the peanut butter?" "Nothing." "Then why do you have it?" "Sandwiches." The cop looks at my pal and then back at me, still holding peanut butter behind my back, and then he does it. Shoves his hand and arm into my pal's peanut butter and starts throwing hunks of it into the parking lot. And my pal loses it. He went on a tirade of peanut rights, the peanut rebellion, just harassing us because we're white, peanut civil rights, and the peanut pride parade. Who doesn't know about the PPP? And on and on. He realizes there's nothing in it, turns to me furiously, doesn't say a word, and just grabs my peanut butter and almost knocks me over. I tell him Mr. Goodbar's lawyer will hear of this, and he does the same thing to me. I launch into a tirade about my working family, our right to sandwiches, the peanut labor movement, collective bargaining rights, and our candy power fighting the man, and so on. He figures out what's going on and slams himself behind the car covered in peanut butter, yells something about us breaking curfew, kinda half chuckling, and tears out. My friend tells him he owes us a sandwich as he drives away. And I thought that was the end of the story, and it was until 5 years ago. I'm telling this to my brother's best friend, who I did not know was the son of the police dispatcher from our town at this time. Apparently, he had to go back and fill out incident paperwork, as there was no way to hide this peanut stuff on his steering wheel/car/uniform. The next day, there was a sandwich on his chair. The day after that, baseball peanuts in his locker. And the day after that, peanut butter in the shower, etc., etc., etc. He still gets peanut-related trolling to this day. Story 6. So it's the 1st of August in Switzerland, the same as the 4th of July in the US a few years ago. My friends and I drink and watch the fireworks and then drink some more. At some point, there are 3 of us left and we mount on our bikes and drive down the hill back into town, completely wasted without lights, singing. So a cop car flashes the blue lights when we approach really fast. Friend number 1 drives into the bushes on the right side of the street and hides there, completely mad. My friends and I don't react and come to some standstill in front of the police vehicle. 2 cops get out. I will never forget what follows. The litany by the cops, dark, no light, driving in the middle of the road, endangering ourselves and other people, was to be expected. My friend nods and says, yeah, and then one officer asks him why he doesn't have a bicycle bell, mandatory in Switzerland. At that point, I am doing the math in my head. No light, wrong direction, no bell, plus the alcohol, and we're looking at several $100s if we're not lucky. My friend gets angry and points at the rubber giraffe on his handlebar. Officer, I do have a bicycle bell. Squeaks the thing, and it makes this ridiculous squeaky noise. The cop gets angry and says, sir, there is no bell, don't be silly. And my friend gets more and more agitated, and says it's even louder than a standard bell, and it works just fine. Squeezing the thing to prove his point. At this point, I completely lose it. I cannot help myself. I am dying from laughter, and I can't stop, even though the cop gets angrier by the second. My friend continues to squeeze the stupid rubber giraffe, tweeting, "This is even better than a bell, sir," and then he starts laughing uncontrollably too. At this point, my other friend, why he doesn't know himself, decides to leave the hiding place just 15 meters across the road. He shoots out of the bushes, pedaling madly downhill, and falls on his ass, the bike flying away. He does this sort of somersault, rolls downhill fast, gets to his feet, and runs like hell. The cops watch this spectacle incredulously. We continue laughing, tears flowing down our cheeks with no way to stop. "Who is that?" the cops ask. Now not sure if they should follow my other friend or keep on with the 2 of us. The only answer they get, more laughter. At which point, and by now we are totally sure that this is going to be the most expensive night ever, their radios go off. Some car accident. They look at us and at each other, helplessly get into the car and drive away. We, laughing and singing. Story 7. I live in Daytona Beach. During spring break and other times of beach going, my friends and I would idle down the beach in my Jeep with no doors or anything open, along with the windshield down while smoking tobacco out of bongs and bowls and joints. Each one of the 4 of us would have some sort of apparatus in our hands while we looked Beach Patrol dead in the eye while driving by. We would get pulled over every f***ing time. Then we would get our asses chewed at for distracting them from public safety, aka preying on hot-ass 18-19-year-old chicks for underage drinking. Story 8. My mother drives a Jeep which the top is often off. We pulled up in the fire lane out of the front of a bank because my mother is kind of an idiot, and she ran inside to use the ATM. I was 15 at the time, and while she was inside, a police officer walked up to the Jeep, sticks his head in the driver's side window and says, "Is this your vehicle, son?" To which I replied, "Yes, sometimes I like to park in illegal places and sit in my own passenger seat." He didn't say a word, stood back, crossed his arms, and just glared at me. My mom came out about 10 seconds later. He took a look at her and said, "Have a nice day, ma'am," and walked away. Story 9. Not really a troll, but still awesome. When I was in college, I would take an empty soda can and cut the top and bottom off and put a slit down the side and slip it into a beer can. This worked so well that my friends and I could openly drink outside of the quad and safety had no idea. I was shocked it worked so well. One day, safety officers actually warned me that drinking too much Mountain Dew was bad for you. I thanked him for the advice, trying to contain the laughter. I wasn't sure if they knew or not at this point, but I found out for sure when my buddy was busted going to a party. He had 6 beers in his backpack, but 1 was in a sleeve. He was in trouble for 5 of them, but when they returned the pack, it had the soda in there. It was pretty gratifying to have them give back a full beer. Story 10. Oh well, I live in London, UK, where the policemen wear these big bucket-shaped hats. So it's a law in the UK that a policeman should give a hat to a pregnant woman should she need to pee. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and she was fat and looked pregnant, so I convinced her to, in a very crowded street, approach a policeman and demand his helmet. The bobby was startled, but anyway, he gave her the hat and told her to hide in a nearby alley. The plan was that she would run with the hat, so she did. She started running, but the cop could obviously run much faster and soon caught her. At this point, I was laughing my ass off. She was a bitch anyway. And seeing herself in trouble, she could not think of any other thing than starting to untie the shoe of the policeman who was reprimanding her. Story 11. When I was a senior in high school, we got a new vice principal from some inner city school who thought he was a real hard case. He would actually go around smelling kids' fingers for the scent of weed. My buddy and I came back from lunch one day, both stone sober, and heard Mr. Hardcase, I forgot his real name, coming out to the parking lot to check fingers. My friend looked at me and then wiped his right hand down the back of his pants into his ass crack. He left it there until we saw the VP coming our way, then pulled it out nonchalantly and we waited. Sure enough, the VP walked up and in his usual threatening manner told us to hold out our hands. I did, and he smelled my fingers, and then moved on to my friend. I could barely keep from losing it as he took a big sniff and then immediately jumped backwards, yelling something about my friend needing to wash his damn hands. Needless to say, this ended the finger-smelling technique at my high school. Story 12. In my case, the cops trolled us. Huge house party. Once-a-year thing around Christmas, the famous pirate party. Lady wenches and naked dudes with eye patches everywhere. Drunken freshmen as far as the eye can see. The cops were called, which we anticipated. They show up and it's two guys in their 30s. One is just tired at the end of a long day and didn't really want to be dealing with the shit show. The other was kind of amused by all the nautical debauchery. When two of the housemates, both over 21, both go out to talk to the cops, the more serious cop just says, "Look, just get some of these people out of here. We don't want to make a scene, so tell them all we won't arrest anyone." The other cop chimes in with his best pirate voice, "Unless they're scallywags." The first cop facepalms and gives his partner this look that says, "Really, dude?" Everyone cracks the f*** up and clears out in a good mood, taking most of the drunken 18-year-olds elsewhere. Story 13. Junior year of college, all of my roommates and I was 21 years of age. I was the only one with a car, so I was the only one who always had to go on beer runs. You can say I looked a bit underage for my age and I drove a sportier car, so within the first month of buying alcohol from this one place, I got pulled over 4 times, not kidding, after leaving the liquor store. I noticed they had no reason to pull me over except the fact that I looked under 21. The cops did play legally, I guess by following me until I did something stupid or noticed something wrong with my car. License plate, light out, took a right turn into the second lane, side view mirror was broken, rolling stop, right turn on a red light. They also made me do a sobriety test once on our busy college street. I got lots of honks. Well, after completely inspecting my car, I went out again to purchase the alcohol. Not surprised, I was being followed by cops when I left. I knew that if I drove perfectly, they could not pull me over. I drove around the block for 15 minutes and I was shocked that they were still following me. I eventually hopped onto the road, got off, and back on. After about 40 minutes of charades, I was getting thirsty and missing the pregame, so I pulled into my driveway. The cops followed me, waited until I opened my trunk and ran in and asked to see my ID for the liquor. I pulled it out with a big grin and they got in their cars and left. I never got pulled over again, maybe because they finally realized, hey, this dumbass is 21. Story 14. Not really trolling law enforcement, but here's the closest thing I have. Early in high school, maybe 15 years old, my friend and I are cutting through a church parking lot because there's a trail through the woods on the other side, leading from one friend's house to the other. We all notice the smell of burning weed while we're near this church, so we're looking around to try and figure out who's smoking. My friend sees someone move inside the church, and it's like 1 a.m. at this point, pretty weird, and goes over to check it out. Soon enough, there are 8 cop cars in the parking lot. As it turns out, someone had tried to break into this church the night before, and the pastor and his entire family were sleeping inside in case they came back. They thought that was us. The cops just absolutely would not believe that we were just passing through, smelled the same thing they surely did, and were just checking out the situation. They detained us for 60 to 90 minutes, looking around the surrounding forestry for our bongs. One of the cops was going around to the entrance to the church to check for signs of attempted entry. At the back door, he found a roach from a joint on a ledge right inside the church. Apparently, it was the pastor's daughter who'd been lighting up right out back, and quickly put out the joint and left it there when she heard her dad yell because he saw us from the front. They wound up letting her off with a warning and gave me and my 3 friends a ride for the 1 mile to where we were going, with their flashing lights on, which was pretty f***ing cool when we were 15. Story 15. Closest thing I've ever done to troll a cop was the following. Got pulled over for speeding. Cops ask if they can search my car and I tell them no. They say they're bringing in the dogs, so I sit there waiting for the dogs. Lo and behold, he signals that there is something in the car. There wasn't, so they made a beeline straight for the large wooden box sitting on the floor halfway under the back seat. They're all excited because they think they're gonna bust me with drugs in it. They pick it up and see this. Suddenly, they're not quite as smiley as they were before. They opened it, looked through the entire thing, and spilled my fucking pieces everywhere. Checked the glove department and the center console and everything. But since I didn't have anything on me, they obviously found nothing.